Selection 1977, week 2 and 3 together. What I like to say is that casting my mind back all those years is quite hard. So inaccuracies are not meant, but exact, I'm sure that you'll understand. But first of all, week 1 was okay. The lads that I was with, yes, there's quite a few disappeared for different reasons. But we had to get and keep your own standards high. That's what was expected. And of course, there's a number of reasons why the guys have gone. Some of them got injury. Some of them, it wasn't for them, but they did try. And a volunteer is worth 10 pressed men. So respect. I'm just glad that I got through at the end. Myself, after the end of week 1, Jerry, Mink, Johnny McAleese, we were still there, and other good friends. But their stories will come later on. I hope you understand that. The aim, of course, is to get to week 4, do test week, and have any chance of getting into the regiment, having passed week 4, which is where all the tests are, and you then wait to find out where you are, if you passed. Daily routine, I would never change. For me, it worked, and we talked about in the last video. Don't change or don't fix something that's not broken. My rule. And it wasn't broken. It worked. It worked on the commando course. So why would I change it? Only a dick would. The squads obviously were smaller. The instructors obviously had less. Example, on day 1, on week 1, there's quite a lot of people, lads volunteering. Now, the ones that had gone had made the squad smaller. For the instructor, that's great, easier to manage. Trying to figure out what's going to happen, where we're going to go. But that's just the way it is. That's how it works in my day. And it did. It doesn't do that anymore. This day and age, it's quantity, not, well, I'm not going to say quality, it's quantity that they need. And I'm not going to say anything against that. You guys can make your own assumptions. I don't mind. The training areas over the next 2 weeks, that's weeks 2 and 3. Remember I mentioned the rural areas of Hereford and stuff. Great, just round the corner. But these, we now started moving way out into Elam Valley, the Brecon Beacons and the surrounds, and people who've been there and seen it and done it will know exactly what I'm trying to say. Nobody said it was going to be easy. It's voluntary. But with the volunteer, that's better than 10 pressed men, is what comes out at the end of it. Penny fan with the famous Jacob's Ladder. The fan dance, fan 4, and many, many more areas we'll come on to in the last one, which will be the next one on selection for me. And we'll go into that in a little bit more detail of what it was like. But suffice to say, if you think it was easy, go and have a beer, because it wasn't. And it wasn't designed to be easy. So that's where we are now. Really, for me, the time I got pissed off, if ever, was getting on a truck in Hereford in the camp and then driving maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours in the back of a Bedford to get to whichever training area you were going to do that day. That would be approximate times to get to one of the training areas over Penny Fan, you know, from the distance from Hereford to that, 40 odd miles. And you sit there, having got out of bed in the morning, had your breakfast, obviously, most important meal of the day. Once you had that, you felt good. But actually for me, sitting in the back of the Bedford, waiting to go somewhere, to go and do something, it wasn't for me. And the same coming back, even worse, having been beasted over the hills, you know, on a training day. I loved that part. The travelling to and from Hereford, I wasn't so keen on. Bergen weights, that's the Bergen you carry on your back, increased in weight. This is what it's building up for, to get you ready to see if you can pass the final challenge. So, that aside, day by day, distances in training would increase. Didn't matter what the weather was. It was quite good in the initial stages. I can remember that. But it was 1977, following the hottest weather on record in 1976. So I was okay with that. So were my colleagues. They weren't newcomers. These guys were and had been there and seen it and done it. And they trained. They didn't just turn up. The people who trained for this are the people who are still there in the main. So this is where it started getting a bit tougher. Once the Bergen weights in the distance, once they got longer and heavier, you can feel it obviously, but your body does adjust. And I don't care what anybody says, I can tell you, having been there and done it, that's exactly what happened. Your body adjusts and you get used to it. You take it on. It challenges you, you challenge it. One winner. The guy that's got it on his back if he wants it. So, you know, that is the best part of it. And of course, when you get out training, you have the instructors. Well, they're like manning checkpoints and stuff. So you go from A to B, B to C, C to D, or 1 to 2, 2 to 3, and so on. But actually, when you get there, and they say, oh, you're waiting for inspiration, and they go, your next checkpoint is, you know, you passed that first part. So when they give you a rendezvous point for the next checkpoint, you've got your map out, you show them where you are, you found the tent with the instructor, and this is not test week, this is tests that led up to that. So what you're doing is proving a point. You're getting from A to B, you can read a map, you can do all of that, not a problem. But the fun part is they just smile at you and just go, here's your next RV point, rendezvous point. They give you it, you show them it back on a map to make sure you've got it. They just don't say an awful lot. But you can't write that grid reference down because you're not allowed to write them down in the SAS. So, once you leave him to go to the next checkpoint, oh dear, if you haven't got it and you don't make it, fall out. But that's the way it was. You know, we didn't have the big orange marker panels to follow like what happens these days. We didn't have trackers and stuff I've mentioned before. It was an individual effort and felt proud at the end of it. But that's what happened. We didn't get any food and water. What you took with you, part of your weight, As long as your weight limit didn't drop in your Bergen, that's what you ate if you wanted, that's what you drank. And they were getting you ready for the following test week, the famous test week. And that's a separate story. So it's head down, arse up, and go. And you did, you went for it, because you had no timings. You didn't know what your time was. You had to get there and finish, but there was no clear time of anything. How long does it take me to get from A to B? I don't know. So you really had to work. And when I say work, I really mean it, because all you want to do with the adrenaline rush is get there and pass it. And that was everybody's thinking. So, as I say, backwards and forwards in the 3-tonner, 4-tonner in them days. It was get back to Hereford day by day. Find out if you were reporting the next morning, and some people weren't. And the lads, you know, you can only do your best. And that's why they picked the best of the best. But at the same time, there was no shortcuts, unfortunately, because you were being watched all the time. However, got back to camp each day, fed, watered, do my feet, any blisters, any sores, get rid of them immediately as best you can, because you know the next day you're back out again. There's no let up, your body is being worn down day by day, and that's what they wanted to do, to find out if you could make it. So that happened, and I'm skipping forward actually to week 2 and 3, but that's because it's going to take an awful long time to go over it, exactly what happened. But not to worry, because at the end of the day, John Mack, myself, Mink, Jerry, and the other guys were still there. We're going to eat in the cookhouse, not the galley, as the Marines call it, the cookhouse. Have a meal, sort ourselves out for the next day, and definitely go for a beer. And that was part of the culture. Go for a beer, relax, then go back and sleep. And then it'd be sweet dreams. We'd go back and think about the next day, what was going to happen. And of course, nobody knew exactly what was going to happen until you got there. And test week, the next one I'm going to do, is I think you'll be really, really interested in, because that's where you find out what the guys actually did in those days. So what I'd like to do is, first of all, if you can subscribe to my YouTube channel, it's free, Rusty Firmin SAS TV, and if you can subscribe to that, you'll be able to keep an eye on what I'm doing. You can keep an eye on future SAS related topics. But most of all, I hope that I'm keeping you interested, and if I am, then I'm really happy with that. It's a bad time, but let's not forget at the end, let's always remember the NHS and the job they're doing at the moment. That has given us time to do this whilst this coronavirus is, out of hand. So thank you. Speak to you shortly.